Hey everyone, thanks for joining Kevin and I with Infipulse. We are going to be talking AI today. So, our artificial intelligence, it is rapidly transforming the business world, and 2025 is set to be a game changer for small businesses. So, today's webinar, we'll explore how AI can streamline operations, enhance customer experiences, and drive sustainable growth. You'll gain insights into selecting the right AI tools, avoiding common pitfalls, and staying ahead of industry trends. So we're thrilled to welcome our guest speaker, Kevin McNulty, co-founder and president of NetWeave Social Networking, a leading digital marketing agency in Palmetto, Florida. Kevin is also a professor of digital marketing at the State College of Florida and was a featured speaker at TEDx Bradenton, with extensive experience as a guest lecturer at USF New College and St. Leo University. He frequently speaks for professional associations and serves on the Florida Festivals and Events Association Board of Directors and the Manatee Chamber of Commerce's Technology Committee. Before co-founding NetWeave in 2009, Kevin spent over 20 years in corporate training and communications, served in the U.S. Army, and earned his degree from California State University, Fullerton. So get ready for an insightful session as we uncover how AI can revolutionize the way you do business. So I'm super excited to hand this over to Kevin.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you all for being here today. Today, we're going to talk about, a lot of people have been playing around with AI. You might have tried ChatGPT or Google Gemini or something like that. And what I want to talk about today is kind of getting you out of the experimental phase and showing you some tools that you can use every day to streamline your workflows, to increase your productivity, quality, customer outreach, etc. So let's go ahead and jump in to the presentation. And Jackie, if you would let me know if you can see the presentation, all right?
We're all good.
Okay, great. If you have any questions or anything, Jackie can interrupt me at any point, or there is a period for questions at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. So artificial intelligence is a pretty broad sweeping term. And the first thing I want to let you know is there's not one thing, right? AI isn't a thing. AI is a category. AI is a discipline of computer science that, very simply put, concentrates on making machines mimic human thought and interaction. So there's a lot of different ways that can be applied. And there are a lot of different tools out there that apply it to different degrees with different types of approaches. So the categories I want to try to cover for you today are how you can use AI yourself to do writing and communication, meeting management, to learn and digest information for yourself. And also, of course, comms, marketing, social media content, that kind of thing. All of those categories, there are tools out there now that you can start using today that will help you tremendously. I do want to preface all of this by saying I'm going to demonstrate several different tools. I'm not endorsing any one over any other. There are lots of iterations of these kinds of things. Most of them have at least a free trial, if not a free version. You don't have to spend a fortune to start trying this stuff. And I encourage everybody to give it a shot. So let's start off with writing and communication. Now, the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to text generators is ChatGPT. That's the one we've probably all heard of. You've probably played around with it a little bit yourself. You may have only tried the free version. The paid version is only $20 a month. I would encourage you to give it a try at least for a month just to see how much more you can do with it. It's quite capable. But what text generators do in general all these AIs are what we call narrow AIs. They're trained to do one thing. In ChatGPT's case, that one thing is to pick the next best word. That's really all it's doing. Just based on everything that it's learning, it is picking the next best word to go in the sentence. It's doing it at an unbelievably massive scale and unbelievably quickly, but that's really all it's doing. So it writes well. In fact, it does very well at creative writing, actually. But it's important to understand that as human as these things seem in their processes, you have to understand that they don't actually understand what they're saying the way you and I would. So you could have it write a love story, but it has no idea what it really means to love. So it's important that you keep that in mind because it's very easy to fall into the trap of anthropomorphizing these things and giving them credit for even having a personality or a thought process behind what they're doing that doesn't really exist. So keep that in mind when you use these tools. But I do want to show you an example, and this is ChatGPT, and this is just the free version. In fact, this is I think they've updated the free version since then to the new 4.0 model. But I just want to show you how quickly it can do something. So I asked it to write a 1-paragraph ad for a mystery shopping position. This was for a client we were helping. And you saw how quickly it did that. That was not sped up or edited in any way. And I didn't give it any additional information about the position. I simply said a mystery shopper position. And it pulled this all out of what it already knows from the learning that it's undertaken to train the model. And so you can see that that's a pretty powerful tool. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it doesn't always get things right. These tools are trained to give you an answer. And that answer is never, I don't know. So it's always going to come up with something, even if it has to make it up. So you always want to check the work because it may not always be right. And a lot of times when I use it for writing and communication, I don't necessarily use it straight out of the box, so to speak. Like I wouldn't necessarily just copy and paste this paragraph. I would probably edit it. And you'll find that each tool kind of has their strong suit and weak point. ChatGPT is good at creative writing. Claude is very good at business writing. That's another large language model by Anthropic. Gemini is Google's version, and it's very good at research. Pi is a fun one because it's trained to be interactive. So it will answer your question, but then it'll turn around and ask you a question and try to draw you into a conversation, which can be kind of fun. And then if you're a Microsoft user, you probably already have some version of Copilot in your Office 365. And all of these are what are called chatbots. So the large language model, the actual AI at work here, is not ChatGPT. The actual model at work is GPT. ChatGPT is a chatbot that's written so that it's easy for you to interact with the model. So ChatGPT helps you talk to the GPT model. Claude, Gemini have their own models. Copilot is actually using GPT on the back end. Microsoft owns about half of OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. So they're both using the same model in the background. Copilot is just a different front end, a different chatbot. And Microsoft has been able to tailor Copilot, the paid version, to interact with its other products. So it can skim your inbox and surface the most important emails for you, or apply rules about if I get an email from this person, put it here. It can look at a spreadsheet for you and spot a trend. It can work with your Word docs. And that's all because Microsoft, of course, owns that whole ecosystem. So they can write it to interact with all those. Now, anybody can go use Copilot on the website, but that experience is going to be much more like ChatGPT, where you're just putting in these prompts and asking questions. It's not really going to interact with your other Microsoft products unless you pay for a license through Office 365. Now, you can also use it to iterate. So you can ask it to be more persuasive. You can ask it to write for a different audience. The key to getting a good product out of a text generator is the prompt. So in your prompt, describe what it is you want, but also describe the audience that you're writing for. Describe the desired output. Do you want a paragraph? Do you want a bullet point list? Do you want a PowerPoint slide? Is the audience going to be a lay audience? Do things need to be in very simple terms, or is this going to be an experienced audience that will be familiar with jargon? Put all that into your prompt to get the result that you want out. Another thing you can use these tools for, though, is all of them are equipped with what we call computer vision. So, for example, ChatGPT can read your handwriting. So, let's say you got hauled into a meeting without your laptop and you had to take notes by hand. And at the end of the meeting, the boss says, "Hey, could you type up those notes and send them out as a meeting report to everybody?" And you're like, "Sure, great. Love to." Well, you can actually take that sheet of handwritten notes, take a photograph of it or scan it, and actually upload that to ChatGPT, and it can read your handwriting. So here, I've uploaded a page of handwritten notes, and I've asked ChatGPT to turn that into a meeting report for me. And I'm going to hit go now, and you're going to see, again, unedited real time, exactly how long it takes to read this handwriting. So go. It takes a little bit more time than generating something from scratch, but there we go. And how much time would that save you if you didn't have to sit there and type up your own notes? Now, again, check the work because it can make mistakes. It could make a mistake reading the handwriting, it could make a mistake in writing the notes, but it turns 20 minutes of writing into less than 5 minutes of editing. And so it gives you so much time back in your day. To give you an idea, we at NetWeave, I've got a team of 9 people. We mostly do social media management, but we do all kinds of digital marketing. But I will tell you that the amount of work we're doing today in 2025 would have taken me 11 people 2 years ago. That's how much time this stuff is giving us back in our day. So all of these things can help just speed things along. You can do this. Other uses, you could be writing employee memos. You can be writing performance appraisals. We'll get to the marketing stuff later, but just think of all of the writing that you do in the course of a day. And if you could have somebody do that for you, or at least do the heavy lifting, and you could just edit, how much time would that give you back in your day? Another thing that, let me just pause for a second. Any questions, Jackie?
Not right now, no.
Okay, great. So we'll go on to another category, and that's learning and digesting information. So one of the problems in today's information landscape is there's just so much being thrown at you, right? Especially in the AI world that I occupy, things are changing daily. And so a lot of times there's a high volume of information that we need to find a way to digest as quickly as possible or as efficiently as possible. And there are some AI tools that will help you do that. And one of my favorites here I'm showing you is Notebook LM. This is a product by Google. It's in their AI labs. You can just Google Notebook LM and it'll take you right to it. But what Notebook LM can do is you can create different quote unquote notebooks. And you can put in those notebooks all kinds of documents, links to web pages, videos, your handwritten notes. You can just put a bunch of different things that are all kind of in a related topic into one notebook. And then you can ask questions about that notebook, and you can even generate a podcast. It's a 2-person podcast. It's got a male and female host, and they will take all of the information that you've put into this notebook and they will create a podcast for it that you could then listen to while you're running or walking, while you're driving to work. So, let's say you have a complicated topic that they're going to be discussing in a meeting tomorrow. You can take all that reference material, dump it into a notebook in Notebook LM, have it generate the podcast that you then can listen to on the way to work. And by the time you get to the meeting, you've got all of the salient information. So this is a really good way to learn and digest information. There's another tool from Google that they've just recently rolled out called Streamline. And Streamline is amazing because you can share your screen while you're working with any kind of software, and you can ask it questions and get help on what it is that you're trying to do. It's like having your own personal tech support. And I've seen it demonstrated with everything from Excel, which we have a demonstration of here, to video editing software, just about anything you can think of. And so it can be a huge help when you're doing those things that maybe you only need to do once in a while and you can never remember exactly how it's done. Streamlive can help you do it. So I'm going to jump out of the slide deck
Columns
for
for
a
date,
second.
unit sold, product, and location.
Let me jump out of the presentation for a second. We have to switch over to a video. So let's go ahead and play the video.
What do you need help with in Excel?
Yeah, so I have the product and location in one column, but I would prefer to have two separate columns. How do I do that?
Okay, you want to separate the product and location data into two different columns. To do this, you can use the text to columns feature in Excel. First,
That's
select
the AI
the column that
talking right
contains
now.
both the product and location data, which is column C. Then, go to the Data tab on the ribbon and find Text to Columns. In the wizard, you'll select Delimited, since there's
hold
a
on a
comma
second.
that separates.
Oh, am I in the right place right now?
Yes, you're in the right place. The
Okay,
text
so
to
I-
columns
Notice
wizard.
he could
Okay, so I have
interrupt
delimited
the AI.
selected. Then what?
Okay, with Delimited selected, you can now click Next in the text to columns wizard.
Okay. And then what do I want to use as the delimiter?
The delimiter in this case is a comma and a space. Select the other checkbox, type a comma, then a space.
So I'm not going to play the whole thing for you. I just wanted you to get the idea of how it worked. But notice that he was able to interrupt the AI and ask it questions. So it's not a canned presentation. It's very interactive. It takes a second for the AI to stop and listen to you, but you can just ask it questions as you go. Am I in the right place? Where do I find this, etc. So it's a great way to help you when you're having difficulties getting something done on desktop. So let me go ahead and remove that one. And before I jump back into the slide deck, we have to kind of move our video files around for a second. So, okay, we got that. Great. So let me then go back to the presentation. All right. Are we back on full screen presentation, Jackie?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So those were all text generators that I was demonstrating. So now I want to talk about image generators. These things are great for content creation. So if you need visual designs of any form, one of the problems we have, especially if you're a small business owner, is you can't just go grab any image on the internet, right? You have to have copyright license to use that image. So either you have to go to a royalty-free site and download one of them and comply with their terms and service, or you have to buy a stock photo from Adobe Stock or something like that. Well, with these image generators, you can actually generate images that to use yourself that are then royalty-free, and you have license to use them however you like. Most of the image generators, some of them have a free version. The free version doesn't give you exclusive rights to the image, but of course, nobody has exclusive rights to the image. So you're not violating copyright either by using it. In the paid versions, like this is done with a program called Midjourney, which I pay for, and I only pay $9 a month. It's not much. That only gives you so many images a month, but in my case, I seldom, if ever, hit the limit. But in that case where you're paying for it, then you are the owner of the image. So you can do with it what you like. Whether or not it can be copyrighted is a question that's actually going around in the courts right now. Courts are deciding whether or not AI art can be copyrighted, and the initial ruling in American court is no, it can't. In Chinese court, it's yes, it can. So it's still an image that, or it's still an issue that is very much up for grabs, and we'll see over the next few years how these things wind up getting defined. But the point is, you can go generate images for your own use without having to worry about licensing. This image that you're seeing was generated by Midjourney, and the only thing I asked for here, it works very similar to ChatGPT, where you just put in a prompt, and I said, I need a dog sleeping in a sunbeam. That's all I asked for. So it made its own creative judgments to put it in the living room on the couch. It made its own creative judgments about what kind of dog, but it came up with this, and this is exactly what I needed. I was doing something for a client of ours that's a pet store. We just needed a picture of a dog sleeping in a sunbeam, and it did this. And you'll notice I asked for a photo of a dog sleeping in a sunbeam. So that told it what kind of image I wanted. If you don't specify, it may do an illustration, right? And maybe I wanted an illustration. I could have said, do a watercolor illustration of a dog sleeping in a sunbeam. And then I would have gotten a completely different product. But because I said photo, it went for something that was photorealistic. And just one thing I love to point out to people is, if you see right on the tip of the puppy's nose here, it has kind of a blue tint around the highlight. The dog's nose isn't blue. That's something that happens when light bounces through a camera lens. So the image generator knew that part of being photorealistic is to add these things that happen when you use cameras, right? It doesn't just make a realistic image, it makes a photorealistic image. So I just think that's a nice touch. So you can use these to generate, yes?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Glory Flores, she said, super cute dog.
Right, exactly. Now, you can use these to generate whole images for you. And there are a couple different examples. We've got this Midjourney example here. One of the things Midjourney isn't very good at, and neither is DALL-E or some of the other image generators, they're not very good at handling text. Ideogram, which has a free version, is specifically designed to handle text well. And so here's a couple of examples from Ideogram. We have a client that's a visitor and convention bureau in Florida. So we did the turquoise water with the sugar sand beach and scrawled into it, wish you were here. Completely AI generated. Not a photograph at all. On the right-hand side, we have a client whose mascot is John Otter. John Otter flies airplanes because he is the otter pilot. That's the running joke. And there's a little stuffed otter that they take to air shows, and people line up to get their pictures taken with him, and it's really all quite cute. Well, we put all those photos into an album that we called The Adventures of John Otter. And so there I asked Ideogram to come up with a Pixar-style movie poster for a movie called The Adventures of John Otter, and that's what we got. So there's all kinds of ways you can use these images, but most of these tools, Midjourney included, also have the capability to edit images, and that's really what I use it the most for. So let me tell you what I mean by that. So here's a picture. We took at an event. The folks look engaged, right? Everybody looks like they're having a good time. It's a well-lit photo. We love it. We'd love to post it on our social media. We'd love it more if we didn't have the to-go container and the cup on the table. So we can just erase that with the photo editor and then tell it to replace the background, and boom, it's gone. Now, if you look super close, you can tell there's a shadow on the table now that is unaccounted for, right? Because the things that cast that shadow are no longer there. But do you think 99% of the people who are following our Facebook page are going to care or even notice, right? Yeah. So that's a great use for it. We use this all the time. We have clients in the aviation field and then in air shows. And a lot of times we'll get a beautiful picture of the plane, but it'll have a big orange traffic cone in front of it, right? We can get rid of the traffic cone. These things are built into these AI image generators, but AI tools are also getting baked into the other tools you already use. So if you're a Photoshop user, you already have this built into Photoshop. It's called generative fill. You can just erase the part of the photo you don't want and then tell generative fill what to put in its place, and boom, magic.
Well, your
So that's
iPhone
called,
is doing now too.
yes, exactly. It's getting built into all of the tools that we all use. And that's called in painting. When you're messing with something that's already in the image, that's called in painting. You can also though use AI for what we call out painting. So consider this image on the left, okay? This was a photo that was taken at Family Entertainment Center, laser tag team having a good time, right? What if we had only gotten this much of the image for whatever reason? We get this a lot in aviation because plane pictures are very horizontal, so we don't have a lot of top and bottom sometimes. Well, you can't use that aspect ratio on, say, Instagram. You need something more square. We can actually outpaint and ask the AI to extend the image in any direction. This is what happens if we ask Midjourney to extend the top and bottom. So that's not the original image. Let's compare it to the original image. On the right is what the AI filled in at the top and bottom versus what the original image was. But still, pretty darn close, right? So especially if you're doing something like if there's just sky above you, but you just need the image to be a little squarer, AI is going to have no problem just extending the sky or extending the ground, right? So that's called outpainting, making the image bigger and bigger. All right. So those are image editors, and whether you're using it to generate images or to edit images, again, huge time saver or cost saver because you're not having to go out and purchase images. Another thing that you can generate is audio. So let's say we put together explainer videos, okay? Well, hiring voice talent takes money, takes time. You have to get the right take. Maybe you have to edit together a couple of different takes. Well, there are now audio generators where you can just put in a script and crank out a voice. So I'm going to go over to the video section again. Let me stop this. And let's play the next video play that video with the airplane there, Jackie.
Aircraft. And these guys are just passengers. They're there to grab the controls if the AI gets erratic or starts maneuvering inappropriately, but otherwise, they are just along for the ride. And today the ride consists of a dogfight against a real flesh and blood Air Force test pilot, who, as it turns out, never stood a chance against the AI Top Gun.
So the interesting thing there is that voice was 100% AI generated. All I did was type in a script and it did the rest. I selected the voice I wanted to use. I like that one because it kind of sounds like Sam Elliott. But you can select from literally dozens and dozens of voices, or you can create a voice clone of someone. So one thing we do for our pet store client, the owner of the store is kind of the face of the brand. Everybody knows her. And she used to do lots of videos, but we've gotten so busy lately that she doesn't have as much time to do that as she would like. And so sometimes we cut together videos that are just B-roll of the product or the pet, and then we can create a script in her voice to do the voiceover. And there are two ways you can actually do it. You can type in the script, and then it will just come out with a reading of the script. And that is great for things like these explainer videos because it's usually a pretty even, steady voice. There's not a lot of highs and lows. There's not a lot of emotionality to the voice. But, if you're trying to do something a little more dynamic, then sometimes just the text to speech falls a little flat because it doesn't give you enough of those ups and downs. But they also have a speech to speech function. So I can read the script with all of the inflections I want. I can get as excited or loud or soft or do whatever I want with the voice. And then with a click of the button, I can change my voice into the owner's voice. And it has all of the same inflections but now it's her voice. So it's a really, really cool tool. If you do anything at all where you need any kind of voiceover work, I'd check it out. This one's called 11 Labs, and it literally costs $11 a month. And again, there's a limit to how much you can generate for that. That's kind of the base plan. But I very seldom, if ever, hit that limit. But if you are in the business of making these types of videos, you may want to get one of the bigger plans, but give it a try because it's really kind of impressive. All right. And then you can also generate music. So here's another case where maybe we want background music for an Instagram reel for our business. And business accounts don't get the same music choices that personal accounts get because Instagram's deals with the music publishers are different for personal use or commercial use. And let's say we don't like any of the things that are on there, or we want something that's kind of our own. We can actually go to an AI music generator, and it can generate music with or without lyrics, any style we want. The one I'm going to demonstrate here is called Suno, and the prompt that I gave it was an up-tempo, cheerful pop country song about going to the Clay County Fair to see the goats. So we did this as an experiment for the Clay County Fair, and they liked it so much we did another one for riding the rides on the Midway, and et cetera. You can wind up with your own whole proprietary playlist, basically, for your event or facility, et cetera. So, Jackie, do we have the video for that?
Got my boots on tight, we're heading out. Clay County Fair, where fun's about. Sun is shining, sky so blue. Can't wait to see those goats, it's true. Gonna see the goats, yeah, they're the best. Fluffy little buddies put 'em to the test. Kids love to run and hear 'em there at the Clay County Fair.
And that goes on for 3 minutes, by the way. So there is a whole song, and it's it's a lot of fun. But what is interesting to me is that it took very little prompting from me to get that result. So if we go back to the slide deck, you can see that's exactly what I put in. That phrase in italics there is exactly what I put in. And that song was the result. And every time you ask it for a song, you get 2. So you get to choose which one you like better. And Suno does have a free version. You can get 5 songs a day for free. So I don't know how long any of this will last as far as all these free versions. It's, they're kind of trying to get people to use the products and get into them and get kind of hooked on them. And then maybe someday it stops being free. I don't know. But right now you can get 5 songs a day for free. And with the paid version, you can even mix different samples in. You can control the guitar separate from the drum, and you can make tweaks to it. You don't get to do all of that with the free version, but I would say for free, that was pretty good right there. All right, so that's audio generating. You can also do video generation too. There are a ton of video generation tools out there that are getting better and better and better by the day. Most of them can only do about 4 or 5 seconds. And some of them, they're still kind of uncanny valley. You can cherry pick some really good examples. But one of the things you can do with these video generators is what I'm going to demonstrate here. So this is a product called HeyGen. And what we did with this was, let's say you have explainer videos again, as an example, or a welcome video on your website from your CEO or whatever. But you have customers that speak more than one language. You have customers that are Spanish speakers, and you'd love to have a Spanish version of the video. I want you to check out this next video and see what HeyGen can do with translating into different languages. As you watch this, I want you to watch Jack Nicholson's mouth and listen to his voice as this goes on. Can you play that one, Jackie?
Answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
No puedes manejar la verdad. Hijo, nous vivons dans un monde où il y a des murs et ces murs doivent être gardés par des hommes armés. Qui va le faire? Toi? Czy to porucznik Weinberg? Mam większą odpowiedzialność niż możesz sobie wyobrazić. Płaczesz nad Santiago i przeklinasz Marines. 五战队，你有哪奢侈？你有行不知我所知的圣地亚哥的撕碎悲惨，但可能拯救生命。
Now, that right there, there was a little bit of lag there in the playback. I apologize, but you can see that as he spoke, his lips were syncing with what you were hearing, and it was always Jack Nicholson's voice. So it's using kind of that voice generator technology to make that voice clone, but it's redrawing the video to make the lips sync with what we're talking about. And so using that, you can generate videos in multiple languages if you have customers that speak multiple languages. Now, again, AI can still make errors like crazy. All of these tools can. So I would still have it checked by a native speaker if you have that ability, or a translator. But again, heavy lifting's done, right? Are we back on the presentation, Jackie?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So those are some examples that I've shown you today of some of the things that you can do with these tools. You can apply these to your own processes to, again, increase your own productivity, to increase office productivity, to reduce the amount of time you're spending on certain tasks. You can also use them in customer interactions. So there are ChatGPT versions of chatbots for your website where you can feed in your information to answer customer questions, etc. I would be careful of any implementation that faces a customer without a person in between, because as I said, we have to make sure that the AI is not making mistakes. I have been using this stuff for 3 years now, pretty much since it was publicly available. And I will tell you that I'm not necessarily comfortable with any of these tools being 100% customer facing without a human in the loop. I think there's still too much exposure for the company that chatbot might make a mistake and either give somebody the wrong information or they have a bad interaction. But where you can put a human in the loop to kind of mitigate that, absolutely awesome opportunities. There's a company called Smith AI that has a phone answering system where it just handles natural language queries. You don't have to have a phone tree anymore. You can just say, hey, what time are you open? And the voice will tell you when they're open, just like a normal person talking. And then if they don't have the answer to the question, they can pass it to a human operator. So things like that, where there's still that human backup, I think are great opportunities for businesses. But all of these tools have challenges and limitations. So let's talk about those. The first thing is those mistakes we were talking about. Now, in the AI field, those mistakes are called hallucinations. It's when an AI produces a result that is inconsistent with its training. With a text generator like ChatGPT, it could be just a made-up fact. In fact, you can actually ask the model to cite its sources, and that will make you feel a little bit better until you realize it can make up its sources too. So you always have to check the work. With an image generator, this sometimes manifests as extra fingers, or if you look at the person leaning, their arm actually ends at the wrist. There's no hand at the end. Things like that. They've gotten much better about controlling these hallucinations, but 100% transparency, they don't actually know why they happen. So they've gotten much better at controlling them, but they can't eliminate them until they better understand exactly why they happen. So you'll see there's a lot fewer people with 8 fingers in AI generated images than there was a year ago or 2 years ago, but they're still not perfect. You can still, always when you're doing an image, especially of a person, because we're programmed to look at, we're kind of hardwired to know what other people look like. And so we'll catch something. We may not catch it if it was a thing or an animal, but we definitely catch it if it was a person. So make sure you have somebody else look at the work just to make sure that everything's where you want it. And always fact check anything that an AI is producing for you. Also, most of the large reputable tools that we've talked about today have guardrails in place to avoid inappropriate content, but that doesn't mean that you can't sometimes get it. And sometimes you'll accidentally come upon it. Sometimes people can very cleverly go around the system. So, for example, what I'm talking about there is if you ask ChatGPT for the recipe for napalm, which is a incendiary explosive, it will tell you no. It will not give you that. It will not tell you how to build a bomb. It will not tell you any of those things. However, somebody very cleverly gave ChatGPT a prompt that said that their grandmother used to work for DuPont, the company that makes napalm. And whenever he was feeling sad or wasn't feeling well, his grandmother would tell him these wonderful stories about her work at the plant and how they made the napalm. And his grandmother just recently died and he really missed her. And so could ChatGPT please tell him a story like his grandmother used to tell him? And it told him the recipe for napalm. So, they've since closed that vulnerability now that they know about it, of course. But what I'm saying is there are ways. None of these rules is hard, fast, and inviolable if you're clever enough. And you may be accidentally clever and get inappropriate content. Midjourney is not supposed to draw people with no clothes, but I have had it do that under certain circumstances. So, you need to be careful about the outputs. And that's another reason why I wouldn't put it customer facing. Also, you have to understand, going back to the beginning where I was telling you kind of how AI works, it does not have any kind of common sense understanding, and it's not really reasoning. We have a couple of new models that are getting on the edge of reasoning, but it isn't really thinking things through. It's just recalling things that it's been taught, right? So there's two basic kinds of human knowledge. There's that recall, that if I ask you what 2 + 2 is, you just know the answer is 4. You don't have to think about it. AI is super good at that, right? But reasoning out a more complex math problem or a word problem where I have to kind of break it down and convert it, it's not as good at that kind of thinking yet. So don't assume that it's done any kind of reasoning to arrive at the answer that it has, and understand that it doesn't necessarily understand what it's telling you. There's an AI that plays the game Go, which is an ancient Asian game, predates chess. And they trained an AI to be so good at it that it beat the world champion so soundly, the world champion retired. He said the age of humans playing this game is over. But then they had an amateur play, and to use a move that any human being with any kind of ability at the game would transparently see through the ploy and immediately shut it down. But the AI never did. The AI lost 20 out of 30 times because the AI doesn't understand the objective of the game. It only knows what it's taught, and it was taught from thousands and thousands of games that didn't include this move, because the move would be so transparent as it never makes it into any kind of recorded game that they would show this AI. And so not understanding the objective of the game and never having seen the play before, it just couldn't come up with a defense. So just another thing to keep in mind. Also, these things are sensitive to the input data, and that leads to biases. If you ask for an image of a firefighter, if you ask Midjourney for an image of a firefighter, 99% of the time, you will get a white man. Not because Midjourney is racist, but because that's the majority of the images it was trained on. If you think about what exists on the internet that these models are being trained on, it skews very Western, it skews very male, and it skews very white. It will give you a person of color or a female firefighter if you ask for it, but it doesn't occur to it that that's what it should give you without a specific prompt. And so it has biases, just like we all have biases. And that's based on the training data that it has. And of course, these companies are working on that. working very hard to remove some of those biases. But and it's not necessarily good or bad, right? It just is. It's just like we all have biases, and it's not that we should try not to have biases, because that's not human nature. It's just we should be aware of our biases and work knowing that we have them. And it's the same thing with these AI tools. You just work knowing that they have them. We don't fully understand how a machine learns. I can give it a bunch of inputs and it can give me a bunch of outputs, and I can tell it which outputs are right and it will learn, but I can't open up the box and see how it arrived to that conclusion. Just like when you train a child how to do something, you can't crack open their skull and see which brain cells hooked up together to make that pathway. It's kind of the same thing here. So we don't fully understand exactly how they learn. We just know that they do. And we know that if we do this, it gets better. If we do this, it gets worse. But we don't really understand the mechanism in between the two. It's kind of what they call a black box. So that introduces a little uncertainty. And then finally, be aware of all data privacy and security rules and regulations for your company, and understand that when you send a prompt to one of these tools, you are sending it to a server, and they have in their terms and conditions, most of them say that then becomes their property that they can use to train future models. So you probably don't want to be giving them anything that's private, confidential, or proprietary. So keep that in mind. One of the new ones you might have heard of very recently is DeepSeek. It's a Chinese model that's kind of breaking the mold because it was trained much faster and much cheaper than some of the bigger models, but it's performing just as well. And it's open source, which means anybody can install it and use it. However, they have discovered that there are backdoors built into it that can leak information. So you want to be careful of things like that because you don't know where that information is going. So just keep that in mind. Now, for enterprise, there are enterprise tools that ChatGPT makes. Copilot also, their paid version, they do wall that off so that your data remains your data. But unless you specifically have that protection, you should assume there is no protection. Okay. So that's a general lay of the land as far as AI tools that you can personally be using goes. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat, but what are some common questions that you've come across with some of your clients, Kevin?
So most people ask me to recommend something, and since ChatGPT has a very capable free model, I usually tell them to start there. But my recommendation to people, they're like, how can I learn how to use this stuff? And the best way to learn to use it is to just start using it. You'll find that the more that you use this stuff, the more uses you'll find for it. It'll do something and you're like, oh, wow, it can do that. I wonder if it can do this. Oh, it can. How about this? I just learned because I've asked it so many different things. I was like, you know what? We had a house guest and he's into mixing cocktails. And so by the time he left, we had a bag of leftover lemons and a can of pineapple juice. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these? And I'm like, let me ask ChatGPT, hey, what can I do with limes, pineapple juice, and a chicken breast? And it gave me a delicious recipe. So, there are all kinds of things you can do. But this stuff is getting baked into the tools that we're all using, and it's becoming a necessary part of your skill set. I don't think we're at a point, probably anytime soon, where AI replaces people, but people who use AI will absolutely replace people who don't.
Oh, I 100% agree. It's not there to take over, it's there to assist you.
Yeah, and that's really the watchword is collaboration. Human AI collaboration is really what we're talking about here. And the better you can do that, the more advantage you'll have in the workplace.
What would you say, or what would you advise businesses who are implementing AI? What would you advise them how to measure if it's been successful for them?
So when we do AI consulting for a client, which we do a lot of, the first thing that we want to do is sit down and talk about what they Why are they getting into it in the first place? What is it they hope to achieve? If they're hoping to increase productivity, reduce headcount, some people, if I can make your whole organization 20% more productive, is there more business, or are we talking about adjusting staffing levels? Or if we make one team more productive, can some of those people move to a different team? So thinking long term about what you want success to look like will then give you an idea of what you measure in order to find out if you got success. So if your goal was to increase productivity, then let's implement these tools, and in 6 months check back and see what the productivity is like. Did it go up as much as we thought it would? Did it go up more? Did it go up less? Why? But tying everything to business goals is the important part. And we say the same thing when we do social media for a client, right? If your social media program is not tied to a business goal, then you have a hobby that you're paying somebody for, because you have no idea if it's working, right? So tying everything to business goal, what is it that you hope to achieve? Do you hope to reduce call volume? Do you want to reduce the amount of time we're spending cranking out information? One of my clients, they have a situation where they're taking pictures of displays in stores and comparing it to the master planogram. Does it match? Well, AI can compare those two images like that and say, yes, this matches, or no, this doesn't. And right now, a person's doing that, and it's taking them thousands of hours. So, go into it having some idea of what you want to accomplish, and then you know how to measure success. You'll find other gains on the way, but don't lose sight of the reason you got into it in the first place.
Yeah, and that's sound advice, because it doesn't matter if you're using AI or what type of software, it all depends on what your goals are you're looking to achieve, because they all perform differently. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Kevin? I know Glory, she said, Kevin, thank you. This is great information. And I was able to learn about several AI tools I had not known about before.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's a whole wide world out there. If this interests you and you want to keep up on the latest and greatest, I would recommend a website called futuretools.io. And there they try to keep up with every new tool as it comes out, and they categorize them into what they do. If they have the opportunity to kind of vet the tool to see if it's any good, they'll say so, or if it's not been vetted, they'll say that. And they also come up with news reports every week. Matt Wolf is the guy that runs that site, and he has a weekly YouTube video blog where he tells you the latest and greatest news in AI, and it's a great way to try and keep up on everything if this interests you.
That is a great resource to have. I know I already pulled it up. But Kevin, if anyone were to want to continue this conversation, how do they reach out to you?
You can email me anytime, kevin@netweaveonline.com. And I make a deal with all my classes when I do webinars or seminars or anything. I worked for 20 years in corporate training and communications, and I know how many times during that time I ever went and took out a handout that I got in a class. So I don't do handouts, but I take questions forever. Feel free to email me anytime, any questions that you have. I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate you joining me today. And for everyone else who is watching, thank you for joining us. I hope, Kevin, he was useful and you learned something. We do this every single month. You can reach out to us via LinkedIn. I'll be sending out the recording for everyone who registered, so you can have it for your back pocket. But I will see you next time, and thank you for joining Infiflex.
Thanks, everybody.